Hey guys, Mr. T here, just doing another video. This one's on converting fractions and decimals to a percentage. So first thing to be aware of is what percentage means or percent means. Percent means per cent, means out of every 100 basically. So that's why 100%, which thinking along those lines means 100 out of 100, refers to a whole amount. If you've done something 100%, you've done it to its full capacity. So a percentage is therefore a comparison between part of something and the whole, given that the whole is divided into 100 even pieces. So with percent, that cent part, I don't know, it's from an old language word that means 100. 100 is going to come up constantly when you're talking about percent. The symbol, this symbol here, that diagonal line with two circles above and below it, that's used to represent percentage, and overall, X% of something means X out of 100. So now we can get to converting fractions and decimals to percentage. So we've already just said that a percentage is simply a comparison of part of a whole to the whole, given that the whole is 100 pieces. Fractions and decimals both represent a portion of a whole. So you can see part of a whole, portion of a whole. So all that's needed to convert a fraction or a decimal to percent is to multiply these fractions or percentages by 100%. You multiply it by 100 and put a percent sign in the end. That's basically what that means, to express a percentage. So the way that I like to remember it and get students to remember it is to remember a very easy example of it. I know in my head that 1 over 2, 1/2, as a decimal is 0.5. And so if I times 0.5 by 100%, like stated here, because to convert a fraction or a decimal to a percentage, you times it by 100%, it becomes 50%. So if I keep that in my head, all I need to remember to convert a fraction or a decimal to a percentage is get the fraction, make it a decimal, multiply that decimal by 100%, and you'll have it. So we've got here 5 over 8. Convert the following to percentages. 5 over 8. I'll show you how you can do it even just as a fraction without converting to a decimal. 5 over 8. I want to times it by 100%. 100 as a fraction is 100 over 1, so that's going to be 500 over, because 5 times 100 is 500 over 8 times by 1, 8. 500 divided by 8. Let's work that out. 500, 8's into 5, no go. 8's into 50, yes, there's 6. 2, 8's into 20, no go, there's 2 of them, with 4 left over. So put a decimal point at a 4, 8's into 40, 5. So 500% over 8 is going to be 62.5%. Now, even though you can do it this way, obviously that's more complicated than it needs to be, you can just use a calculator. Convert 5 over 8 into a decimal by doing in your calculator 5 divided by 8 and then times it by 100%, which is what you should do for this one. So 0.065 times by 100%. If you times something by 10, it jumps the decimal point 1 to the right. If I'm timesing something by 100, it jumps the decimal point twice to the right. So 0.065 is going to be 6.5%. And then 1.35, same thing. 1.35 times by 100%. Jump the decimal point twice to the right. It's going to be 135%. So that's an example of converting decimals and fractions to percentage. Now we need to be able to do the other way. So converting a percentage back to fractions and decimals. Now, if going forward, going from fraction to decimal is timesing by 100%, converting back from a percentage to either a fraction or decimal is simply the reverse process. You divide the percentage by 100%. So once again, I'm going to go back to that simple example I had before. 50%. I know in my head that that's equivalent to a half, that's equivalent to 0.5, but just to show you that the process works, if I do 50%, divide that by 100%, that's going to give me 0.5 as a decimal, which I know is 5/10, which cancels down to 1/2. So hopefully you can see that percentages and fractions and decimals and fractions percentages, they convert between each other very easily. So another example, convert the following to fractions in simplest form. Well, I know that 150%, according to the formula given before, that's 150% is the same as 150 out of 100. That cancels down to, divide everything by 10, that goes down to 15 on 10, and that goes down to 5's 3 on 2. It's a fraction in simplest form. Now this percentage over here is slightly more complicated because it's a decimal percentage, but we should be fine. 0.5% is the same as 0.5 over 100. We don't like decimals in fractions, so to get rid of that decimal, I want to times it by 10, and times the bottom by 10. We're allowed to do this because 10 over 10 is 1, and I'm allowed to times anything by 1 because it doesn't change the question. So 0.5 times by 10 is going to be 5 over 1,000, and then how many 5's go into 5? 1. How many 5's go into 1,000? 5's into 1, nothing. 5's into 10, 2. 0, 0. So 1 out of 200 is a fraction in simplest form. Now that's fractions, that's percentages into fractions. Now we need to convert to decimals. So 43%, well I know 43% is going to be 43 out of 100. 43 hundredths is the same as 0.0, that's 0/10. We got 43 hundredths. So if I've got 43 hundredths, there's 3 in the hundredths column, and tenths are 10 times as much as the hundredths column, so it's going to be 0.43. Okay? The other way that you can do it is to divide by 100%. So 43% divided by 100%. If I times by 100, I jump the decimal point twice to the right. If I'm dividing by 100, I jump the decimal point twice to the left. So it goes 1, 2. So that's also going to be 0.43. And this one here, 32.5%, that's the same as 32.5%. And I'm going to go straight for the easier method that I showed down there. Dividing by 100%, jump the decimal point twice to the left, that's going to be 0.325 as a decimal. So hopefully this video you've seen what a percentage is, how to convert it to a fraction, how to convert it to a decimal, and also converting percentages back the other way into fractions and decimals. Hopefully that helps you out. I'll see you in the next video.